The procedure is similar for ceilings. Use both drive wheels on the joint for the first 6 inches. Then, engage the creaser wheel and tilt the bottom of the taper at a slight angle, leaving only one drive wheel in contact with the drywall surface. The creaser wheel will stick the tape firmly in place until you wipe it down. As before, lead with the head of the taper. Move along the joint and stop approximately 3 inches from the end. Cut the tape and roll out the remaining tab to the end. For vertical joints, start at the bottom with the taper parallel to the floor. As soon as possible, lead with the head of the taper and tilt the bottom end toward you at about 45 degrees to make tracking and control easier. It is important to wipe down all the flats before taping the corners and angles. In corners and angles, start with a longer tab of tape. Run out a few inches along the angle and then engage the creaser wheel to guide the tape into the angle. Keep both drive wheels in solid contact with the adjacent wall surfaces and the taper running in a straight line. If you twist the head, the tape will slide. In the first few feet, the creaser wheel will drag the tape slightly, taking up the extra tab length. With a little practice, you can control this drag by the amount of pressure you apply to the creaser wheel. Ease off pressure on the creaser wheel as you run the rest of the angle. Use the extended creaser wheel to tuck in the end of the angled tape. For short wall lengths and window returns, stand the taper on your foot, turn out a suitable piece of tape, cut it, and put it in place with your fingers. In small places, such as closets, you may find it difficult to run the full length of a joint. On vertical joints, stand the taper on your foot and use the key to turn out the first few feet of tape. Put the tape in place at the bottom of the joint and then finish up to the ceiling. The shorter T34 taper is ideal for such tight spaces, and you use it as you would the full-length taper. When putting the taper aside for a short time, put it in the gooseneck. For longer periods, such as lunchtime, close the gate valve, tear off the first foot or so of joint tape, and put the taper head down in a bucket of water. The second step in the taping operation is to wipe down the bedding coat. As we mentioned, it is important to wipe all the flats before proceeding to the angles. To wipe down corners or angles, use the angle roller and the 3-inch angle head. Remember to first prime these angle tools by applying mud to the wheels of the angle roller and then filling the cavities on the angle head. The angle roller beds the tape into the corner and forces out excess compound. Bisect the angle with the handle and advance in short strokes from the center out to the ends. Since wet tape stretches a little, starting from the middle avoids wrinkles and bunching up of the tape. After rolling the angle, use the angle head with its ball end handle to distribute the compound evenly over the tape and feather the edges. Keep the bend of the handle positioned to allow for freedom of movement, with the pointed end of the angle head forward. Bisect the angle with even pressure on both sides. The spring action of the head works effectively to compensate for angles that may be just over or under 90 degrees. These two tools finish the bedding coat, except in corners where the ceiling and wall angles meet. Use a drywall knife to detail these corners. Overnight drying and shrinking of the bedding coat is usually enough, but in cold or damp climates, complete drying may take longer. Make sure the bedding coat is dry, hard, and stable before proceeding to the next step, applying the topping coat. Begin the topping coat with the nail spotter. By doing this first, you can cover an entire row of nails with each pass without having to interrupt for freshly finished joints. If you need 3 coats of compound over the nail heads, you should apply the first coat before you begin taping with the taper. Remember, the mud used for the nail spotter should be thick and creamy. Also, this is a good time to tap in any nails that may be sticking out too far. Fill the nail spotter through the opening in the face using the filler adapter. Place the nail spotter flat against the wall at the beginning of a row of nails. draw the spotter along the row from one end to the other. At the end of each row, lift the nail spotter from the wall in a sweeping arc. For nails too close to the floor, reverse the head and work upwards in a sweeping motion. Use the 2-inch spotter for the first coat and the 3-inch spotter for finishing coats. Apply topping and finishing coats to flat and butt joints with the flat box. This box comes in 3 widths, 7, 10, and 12 inches. These 3 boxes will handle just about any situation, and almost every job requires at least 2 of the sizes in some combination. The flat box has a hinged pressure plate. When the box is full of compound, pressure on the handle forces the pressure plate forward and pushes compound out through the slot in the face plate. A steel blade then smooths the compound to a uniform thickness, slightly crowned over the center line of the joint. You control the amount of this crown with the dial on top of the box. At the number 5 setting, the blade is restrained, leaving practically no crown. At number 1, the blade is free to leave the most amount of crown practical. Apply topping coats with plenty of crown and finishing coats with little, if any, crown. To lock the flat box in the proper position for starting and stopping, squeeze the brake lever at the lower end of the handle. To fill the flat box with compound, use the filler adapter on the pump. When you are ready to apply the compound, lay the box wheels and blade flat against the joint. Release the lever. Apply pressure to the pressure plate and draw the box along the joint. Lead with the handle at an angle of about 45 degrees. Whenever possible, work toward openings. Otherwise, it is best to start at the ends of a joint and work toward the middle. When you approach the end of the run, lock the box with the brake lever. Ease off on the pressure and remove the box in a sweeping motion. Be sure to gradually release pressure on the box and sweep it away from the wall. If you stop without releasing pressure, you will leave excess compound on the joint. On vertical joints, start at the floor and work up about 2 or 3 feet. Lock the handle and remove the box in a sweeping arc. Start again at the top. As you reach the finished part of the joint, repeat the locking and sweeping motion. Finish ceiling joints in the same way. The flat box is available in several handle lengths from 3 feet to 6 feet long. These handle lengths help compensate for the variety in worker sizes and ceiling heights. The angle applicator works in conjunction with either the 2-inch or 3-inch angle head to apply a consistent finish to both sides of an angle at the same time. Compound is loaded into the angle applicator through its spring-loaded filler valve using the base adapter on the pump. To apply the finishing compound, begin by setting the angle head in one corner. Apply pressure as you work toward the other end, keeping the angle applicator centered on the angle head. Steady pressure will distribute the compound evenly and feather the edges neatly. Now, after the topping coat, comes the finishing coat. This coat is very thin and usually dries quickly. Afterward, you may need some light sanding with a universal sander to smooth out small, uneven spots. First, go over all rows of nail heads with the 3-inch nail spotter. Then, apply a finish coat to all flat and butt joints with a 10-inch or 12-inch flat box. If a final skim coat is required, use the 12-inch flat box on all joints after the finish coat is dry. When the finish coat is thoroughly dry, sand lightly where necessary. The finishing process is now complete. At the end of each day, allow yourself time to clean your tools thoroughly. Clean tools will perform better, saving you time and trouble. Also, tools that are clean and properly lubricated with Ames Bazooka oil will wear longer, helping you avoid trips to exchange tools.